Ah yes, revivals. The one thing that keep channels such as Cartoon Network and Disney Channel alive. Because let's be honest, when Disney Channel makes original shows, they end up being cancelled after its second season most of the time, and they don't get the attention that it should receive from its viewers. However, on Cartoon Network side, they just can't be bothered making original shows anymore. Considering the shows from the late 2010s that they pretty much cancelled, despite these shows getting good reception from viewers, we don't know if they are going to rely on making original shows at this rate. Perhaps they are just gonna make revivals so that they can make money. And of course, the big three of the 2010s Renaissance era of their shows are being brought back to life now. We already saw that with Adventure Time with its spin-offs Distance Land and Fiona and Kick, and we all know how well it did for them. They announced that there's gonna be more spin-offs of the show along with a new Adventure Time movie that could be in the works. No shocker. It was announced that Regular Show is getting a spin-off series titled Regular Show Lost Tapes and possibly even a sequel series. We already knew that Gumball Season 7 was announced like way before 2024 when they revealed the year is gonna release. A month and a half ago the trailer of it dropped and holy shit, this is going to be awesome. They recently announced the specific release date, which is July 28th. So do you know what that means? In this same summer we are going to get a Gumball revival, and the subject for today's video, the Phineas and Ferb revival that has already been released more than a month ago. Two of some of Gen Z's most beloved childhood shows from the 2010s era are being resurrected this summer. Isn't that crazy? Exactly 10 years ago to this day, the final episode of the original one aired on Disney Channel and XD. Now fast forward to July 2025 and season 5 of the show has hit our screens. With 10 episodes releasing on Disney Plus, this is a huge deal for us fans of the show. We have been waiting for 2 years for this from when it was announced in January 2023, and now the meals have finally been prepared to our tables. The hype was so worth it. As a part of the participation, I binge watched all of the episodes of the original one of the series from season 1 to 4 during summer 2023, just so I can get ready for the 5th season of the show in advance. I watched the first episode of the revival when it released on YouTube earlier last month, and oh boy, did they exceed my expectations. With the original crew of the show coming back, it gives us hope for more good shit like this to be planted into the revival. Words could not describe how happy I was with the fact that the quality of the show still held the standard of the original one of the show. It summoned up my inner 6-year-old, feeling very astounded by all that I have seen from this revival. It's like my wish from 10 years ago about the comeback to Phineas and Ferb came true. They are actually back, and it seems like the future episodes of this revival are going to keep the stakes going higher and higher in terms of the quality of the revival. How many bloody times am I saying the word revival in this video? It started to get a little bit jarring. Unfortunately, after this, I wasn't able to watch any more episodes of the revival, but that wasn't until I convinced my mom to pay for the £2 per month forfeit that Disney Plus had for a period of time, mainly because I wanted to watch all the episodes of Phineas and Ferb season 5 that were out on Disney Plus at the time, and it actually worked. I was so excited to watch more episodes of this revival. There are 10 episodes that have been released on this streaming service like I already said, and you guessed it, as the big fat Phineas and Ferb fan I am, I watched the 9 episodes in one fucking sitting. In case if you were paying attention, I already watched the first 4 episodes when Disney Channel posted it on their animation channel. It was such a breathtaking experience to watch all these episodes in the span of 3 to 4 hours. It gave me such a good vibe. By the time I watched all the episodes of the season, I never felt ever more happy before in my life in such a long time. The actual season itself, without a doubt, is actually great in my opinion. They managed to soar my expectations for this revival, which is very impressive. The crew cooked real hard with this one. So far, it is on par with season 4 of the show in terms of its quality, and that is saying a lot. The writing of the show is better than ever before, and it is a good sign for the future of the series, as it brings me hope for the second half of the 5th season to be of very good quality. We seem to be a few minutes into the video, so now will be the perfect time for me to cover all of these episodes. I will be covering them one by one, and I will be going over the stuff in these episodes that make them a good watch. The episode starts off with Phineas and Ferb in a school setting, which is the most surreal shit I have ever seen since Adventure Time in Fortnite. Like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, bro. Phineas and Ferb in school? That's like Sonic the Hedgehog on Earth. It's how surreal it is. It's almost like I'm living in a fever dream. In this part of the episode, Phineas and Ferb and his classmates are waiting for the clock to hit 3 o'clock so that they can leave their school and celebrate the first day of summer. Which is basically what happens as Phineas and Ferb start singing the first song of the Phineas and Ferb revival. According to Phineas's nerdy logic, they actually have 104.5 days of summer vacation, cause if you think about it, they have 9 remaining hours left of the day after school to chill during their summer. I mean, who would have guessed? And as we all expected, the songs in this show still remain strong with their catchiness and beautifully written lyrics. And this is only the first song in the revival. That's how you know that the hype has all been worth it. With Doofus notes and candles having lines for this song, it creates higher stakes for the show's new season in terms of the shenanigans that they are going to be into. I like how Phineas refers back to the inventions that they were creating in their previous year of summer, because it's pretty much how us the viewers can tell that this show's 5th season is taking place the summer after the summer during season 1 to season 4, along with the fact that they are showing old footage from season 1 of the show of their earlier inventions. It's very neatly placed into the song. From the lyrics of this song, they give us an implication that this whole song is made as a nice little 4/4 break for the fans of the show who have been waiting for this moment to come. As you pretty much know by the theme of the song, that this is the official comeback of Phineas and Ferb. After 10 years of anticipation, we finally get to see the misadventures that they will come across in their next summer vacation. It's like a special gift for the fans, because we already given something to the crew of the show, and that is our patience. So they are giving this tremendous song to us in return for that. Or maybe it's just my ass waffling, because that wasn't really their intent, because they intended for the show to end up to its 4th season, but we all know Disney and how they want, with Phineas and Ferb being the most popular show. Of course, one day they will want to revive it, and it is very rewarding because this song is a banger. With it being the first song of the revival, that is beyond breathtaking. It puts a whole feeling of excitement to our faces, as we all know that they are going to be cooking very well for this season, which is what this song is entailing at. It basically foreshadows that the season is actually gonna be worth it for us long-time fans of the show. The only constructive criticism I can give for this song is that the animation can be clunky at times. Like, just look at this awkward movement of these random NPC characters. Tell me that it looks like, what the hell? But hey, that's not really much of a problem. Yes, I know I've already been through this joke back when the footage of it was showed in the season 5 trailer, and if you do watch my content, in which most of you take part in that war, I know, because I'm seeing in my horrendous view count I get per video, then you should know that I already touched on this visual gag on my Phineas and Ferb season 5 trailer review I made a few months back. Watching that video now would be pointless now that the revival has been released. But if you want, you can go watch that video, whatever. As what we have seen so far from this episode, the show is still cracking it with its humor. As Baljeet Tisabella try coming up with their own ideas of what Phineas and Ferb should invent for the day, since Phineas and Ferb have run out of ideas. I mean, come on now, I don't blame them. We've already seen dozens and dozens of the invented material that they independently brainstormed with the original one of the show, so of course they will struggle to think of an idea for an invention. Buford comes up with a very silly idea of what invention Phineas and Ferb could make, which somehow turns out to be a funny joke in the episode. Spoiler alert, this is going to be a running gag that occurs throughout the season. And also Dr. Doofenshmirtz still captures the magic that he had in him in season 1 to 4 of the show that made him stand out. Wacky and haters always reflecting his hilarious nature. This still stands in the revival in the show when he randomly uses his vaporizinator to make some random radio device disappear because a random song was playing from the radio that was very annoying to him, so he decided to vaporize that out of all things in the world that he thinks is threatening to him. That shit is so hilarious. I cackled at this scene when I first watched the episode. In fact, I'm gonna make the scene even funnier
with my audio replacinator.
Horrible voice impression of Doof, by the way.
Vaporize!
With all this in mind, the charm from the original one of the series is still being captured. With the fascinating scenarios we see from Candace with her still planning to get her brothers busted as the asshole snitching MF she is, along with the plot twist that we see from the invention that Dr. Doofenshmirtz created in this episode. It boosts up the tension of the resolved scenarios we get with Candace when she's trying to convince her mom to bust her brothers. For example, in this episode, when Dr. Doofenshmirtz accidentally bumps his head to the vaporizinator, it diverts to Linda's whereabouts, and once Candace attempts to show her Phineas and Ferb's invention, the vaporizinator hits her and she vanishes. Candace screams, knowing well that she is the one who caused her death. Not gonna lie, this shit was very funny, but fucking hell man, this shit is so dark. Even for Phineas and Ferb standards. The show has never been this dark before. With the title of the second segment being Cloudy with a Chance of Mom, you can tell that things start to become more intense here. It implies that there is a chance that she is dead. Unless it's gonna be like another Two Colors amphibious situation where Marcy got horrifically injured by King Andreas as he stabbed her with his sword, where basically as viewers thought that Marcy would died, but it turns out in the next episode of the show that she is still alive, except she is in a coma. Yeah, that's what it's gonna be like in the second segment of this episode of Phineas and Ferb season 5. With all that said, you pretty much know where the second part of the episode is approaching at. Again, this episode title implies that the episode is going to revolve around Phineas and Ferb and friends trying to come up with a solution for Linda to come back to life. She's basically a cloud now, so it's like she's in heaven. It's as if she's meeting Jesus Christ. Holy crap, this is even not darker than I expected. In all seriousness, she is actually still alive but in the form of a cloud, which is where that Cloudy with a Chance of Meatball reference of the title came from. If she gets dissipated in the cloud form, she will obviously die. Again, this shit is way too dark for Phineas and Ferb. The fact that they got away with this is mind-blowing in such a good way, you know. This episode pretty much has this sinister tone to it, and it's looking to be more intense as the episode plot progresses. Meanwhile, Dr. Doofenshmirtz has run out of innate ideas, so he accidentally gets inspired by Monogram to turn the Linda face cloud into a whole ass storm, which is going to be important for the A-plot of the episode as it is going to increase the intensity of the dark overarching theme of this episode. We still have room for some funny dialogue scenes in this episode, which is cool I guess, along with what I think is a visual cutaway gag that leads to somehow funny dialogue.
There's also this big metal device labeled Vaporizinator.
Wait, what the fuck? Buford actually finds out about the Vaporizinator? And imagine what his reaction would be when he finds out it was Dr. Doofenshmirtz that was behind all of this. The last time I remember the main protagonist coming across Doofenshmirtz outside of the last day of summer was in the Night of the Living Pharmacist special. And I don't know if it would change their whole point of view on Doofenshmirtz as general, because I remember in that episode it was implied that they understood that Doofenshmirtz created clones of himself on accident. Also, there's one joke I need to discuss about in this episode where Isabella goes out of context and implies something rather familiar.
You heard, pop the balloon and win a prize! Miss it and my future mother-in-law is gone forever.
Yep, she literally implied that she is planning to get married. On a certain extent, it links back to one joke in the original one of the show that I can't remember what season of the show or like even episode of the show that the joke comes from, where it was highlighted that Phineas and Ferb are going to have babies when she said that one day they may become grandparents. I don't know, man, I can't remember the context of the scene, but I remember there was one joke like that in the show. The fact that they are making a joke in the revival of the show that has a connection to a previously existed joke in the original one of the show is out of this world. That's one thing I will give props for this episode for. I like that they are referring back to past events in the show to be familiar with the long-time fans of the show that grew up watching the show mainly during the time the original one of the show or still airing. It's a very clever way for the writers to make sure that this appeals to the long-time fans of the show. In addition, they made this one adult joke in this episode that actually landed for me.
Is 269 a prime number?
What the fuck?
Yeah, I know that this joke is mainly funny for the 12 to 14-year-olds. Some of them probably grew up with the original season 1 to 4 of the show in the late 2010s, don't ask. They are still with the target demographic of the show who find this shit hysterically funny. They will laugh out very loud and they will think that what they have seen is so fucking funny that it makes them wanna merge without looking. Or the way Baljit was raising his eyebrow that had emphasis on the line delivery of the joke actually made it funny. In fact, in the first place, it's funny that Baljit is making this dirty joke because it's as if all these characters have unrestricted internet access. Imagine a world in Phineas and Ferb where that is the case. You wouldn't want to know the outcome. I don't know how Disney got away with this. This reminds me of when Disney was back in its edgy phase where they would be making these type of dirty jokes in their shows more often, except it always ends up being subtle. It's basically using fan service as a smart and clever way to add more depth to the characters in the show, which is very authentic. The fact that they are balancing these playful moments of the show with the serious theme of the episode is groundbreaking to us, as it makes the episode an even better experience for us. Therefore, it's more enjoyable to watch. The execution of this episode with its emotional depth with the characters that they try so hard to bring Linda back to her original form, along with the episode's dark and almost apocalyptic theme was already enough for us to get a bittersweet experience of the episode. But the comedy still being this good alongside that makes up for a very great segment of the first episode of Phineas and Ferb season 5. They managed to make the second part of the episode even better than the first part with having higher stakes and more spectacular writing. It was actually so sad to see Linda die in the final scene of the first part of the episode, where the characters actually managing to bring her back to life along with Perry, who makes the epic parkour finish to reviving her despite him partially causing Linda's quote-unquote death. Delivers a powerful moment of redemption that ties the emotional and comedic tones together perfectly, setting a strong and memorable start to season 5. Oh, and the love handle gang is back. That is sick, This episode wasn't just really good, but it actually turned out to be great. He managed to shatter my standards for the episode in terms of its quality, with which still encapsulated the charm the show had in its original run. and overall it shows a good sign for the rest of the season of the show. Episode 2 was another great episode, but the first part of it though I wasn't really a big fan of it, with another cool invention that Phineas and Ferb is making on the way. And holy shit, that sandwich is making me so fucking hungry. Why the hell did that texture have to look so appetizing? We see this running gag of the bread bowl hot tub that Buford is annoyed that they are yet to make the invention. Like I said, this gag will be going on throughout the season. I don't know why, but this running gag is actually kind of funny to me. It adds a sense of comic relief, and yeah, there's nothing much to say about it, but it adds more depth to Buford as a character. Unless if it's just me who thinks that. Wait a minute, the bread bowl hot tub is actually real. No fucking way. Hell, even the description says it can show you can bully a client into just about anything if it costs less than $10,000, which is something Buford would actually do. So it pretty much adds to my point here about how it adds to his depth, because it gives us the opportunity to showcase Buford's creative side to the table, which makes us even more invested towards him as a character. Also, I love how Candace describes Phineas and Ferb's invention as a monstrosity, probably because of how large the sandwich is. With the way she violated her own little brothers is so cruel to the point where it's actually hilarious. And the fact that she is pissed off about that of all things that she has valid points to be pissed off with her life is so absurdly ridiculous. It perfectly captures her, like she has better things to do. Even in the context of this episode, Linda even says that she needs to catch up with her sandcastle. We still get some funny dialogue scenes between Isabella and Buford, which is part of what made the first episode more enjoyable to watch. So it's amazing to see that the writers are always ensuring that the fun dynamics of these episodes set up even more charm to the episodes, which makes them more entertaining, which increases the quality of these episodes. Speaking of charm, they are keeping up with the visual gags in the show that make room for more funny moments. There's nothing else much to say about this segment of the show other than the B-plot of the episode with the chaotic situations we get to see at Doofenshmirtz and Perry, especially with the fact that Doof's ambition in this episode is to steal food for all over the tri-state area, which on its own is a pretty funny idea. He's only doing this because his ass is so lazy. Because his ass is too lazy to make any food, and heck, he's even too lazy to go out to a restaurant to buy food. So he decides to make an innator to track every place in the tri-state area that has food, so he can steal all of these foods. Look, the guy even knows if he has food around him. This is literal Garfield levels of being a lethargic fat ass, which is what makes this shit even more ridiculously hilarious. This concept brings in very tremendous execution as it creates space for more classic and fun shenanigans within Perry and Doof, which leave room for more funny jokes that are on par with the situations that go on in the classic OG episodes of the show that give us long-time fans of the show the nostalgic vibes from the loud laughter that we cherish from these moments, making this episode even more fun to watch. The shit that goes on in the A-plot is fun and all, but like I said, there's nothing much to say about it. I guess it reminds me of some of the adventures that they go on in the classic episodes of the show, I guess, which gives me fun nostalgic vibes, I guess. They should have done more with this part of the episode, but at least we still get an overall really good segment of the episode as it's being carried by Doofenshmirtz and Perry's hijinks. And we have another reference to the Love Handle Band, which is cool. There's this one line from Candace about her soon getting a license, so then it gives her an excuse to ride the submarine sandwich. It gives her a valid excuse to ride the submarine, making it more safe for Phineas, Ferb, Isabella, Buford, and Baljeet. But there's something rather special about it that it pretty much connects to one of the main plot lines of the next segment of this episode, as it revolves around Candace doing a driving test and she gets distracted by the inventions that her brothers his mate, so she tries to bust him along the way, but yeah, you obviously get the drill. Funny moments are still present in this segment as always, and it's nice that we get a flashback that we get to see from the original show whilst Linda is discussing Candace's driving experiences from where Hood was helping her with driving safe along with her brothers. It gives me such nostalgic vibes, honestly. I love that they did this. But there's something fishy about this. Phineas and Ferb are only 11 years old, so how on God green's earth are they allowed to help Candace drive, even though that they are too young to drive? So it will be very dangerous and unsafe as a result. They are 10 in the original one of the show, but my point still stands. And also we all know how shitty she was driving back when she was 15. But wait, she was 15. She isn't legally old enough to drive yet at that age. You see, this is how we know that Phineas and Ferb's parents are shitty parents. The writing is still as clever as ever. As Candace's dad is there to check on Candace's driving test when he calls her on the phone. The fact that they are resolving back to past events of the show and they call back to them is very pleasing to us viewers, because them relying on fan service is how they are appealing much to the people who grew up with the show when they were children, and now they are teens and adults. So it gives them more enthusiasm for the future events that they will be going on in the show, as they are using nostalgia as a tool to enrich on the story's depth and the emotional payoff within the characters, which has an emotional impact on the viewers on the show, which enhances the quality of the episode as a result because of its top-notch execution. Inventions that Phineas and Ferb made are cool as always. But doesn't this imply that Phineas and Ferb have the potential to work at the Geico company? You know what, fuck this unfunny joke, let's continue reviewing the episode, goddammit. The gags in this episode still manage to land and the jokes are still as funny as ever. The situations we get with Perry and Doofus merge well, however there's nothing I can say about them because it will just be me repeating the same points from the first segment, which will end up becoming overly jarring. So I'm gonna go and yap more about the A-plot of this segment because it seems like it's the highlight of this segment this time. Of course, in the next scene, Candace gets interrupted by Phineas and Ferb's Geico invention, in which I don't know where she is letting that distract her, even though Linda tried to tell her that all that shouldn't get in the way of her instincts. But that is Candace, and that is what makes her stand out as a character anyway. Because the scene transitions into a musical sequence where Candace shows off her toughness with her very skilled driving and her license to bust, that being the title of the episode. I love how in this song she literally mentions the title of the episode that it's in such a creative way, because in this part of the episode she still has the chance to bust her brothers, but she has to focus on passing her driving license first before she does that, in that way she has a more unlikely possibility of getting them busted. Think about it this way, she either has the license to drive if she passes her driving test, or she has the license to bust her brothers, which will get in the way of her more important priority, which is to pass her driver's test. This just demonstrates how amazing the writing can be in a Phineas and Ferb song, along with the song being such a heavy banger. Not just that, but her singing voice also adds personality to the song as it reflects her put the pedal to the metal mood that she has as she is trying to pass her driver's license. Did I just re-quote a phrase from the song just to prove my point here? Like what? That could have been even more cornier. I mean, look at how good Candace is as driving. With her being in this tough mood, it lightens up the theme of this song, which is for a good cause. The fact that you can see even more of her development throughout this song and her depth as a character just shows how amazing the execution is alone in this part of the episode. This song is on par with the quality of the songs from the original one of the show, which is one of the things that give us hope for the quality of the future episodes of the show to stretch even further, rising the stakes up even higher and higher as we get from each episode to episode, which further increases the hype twin as it builds up anticipating for the future events of the show. In the next part of the episode, we see that Perry is saving random people's lives. Typical Perry that plotted to be the alleged tool is. The shenanigans that go on with Perry and Doof still make room for funny moments in the show, which is what adds to make this episode an even better experience, with the A plot already being amazing so far in general mostly because of its writing. The B plot, despite there not being much to talk about, still ends up being a goated part of the episode, with it being announced that Candace has passed her driving lesson, meaning that she is able to drive independently in the future, as now because of this she will now have her driver's license. It makes us feel excited that we can potentially see more episodes with Candace driving that could bring in more chaotic and fun moments that encapsulate the vibes that we get in the classic nostalgic episode from the original one of the show. Or maybe not, because there's only a whole dozens of ideas that the crew of the show have for these future episodes, so yeah. All of this overall cooks up a high 8 out of 10 segment of the show that blasted my expectations, especially since the first segment wasn't as good as this. And also what I've noticed that the stuff that Phineas and Ferb invent in the first segment correlate to the narrator that Doof made in the first segment, as well as the main theme of the second segment being that Candace is doing a driver's test and she's trying her hardest to pass so that she can get a car in the future. Also correlates to the Doof and Perry plot shenanigans where Doof's invention has the ability to change traffic lights so it can change havoc for the residents around the tri-state area, which is very cool. It makes the episode even more fascinating. With all this being stated, it's clear that the stakes are getting higher and higher as we get into more episodes of this revival. I've repeated this quote-unquote stakes are getting higher and higher phrase point for almost half, if not exactly half of a dozen of times in this video. Goodness me, I should give this one a rest. In return, always get annoyed at me repeating myself almost every single fucking time just so I can overanalyze a point that makes a Phineas and Ferb season 5 episode great, which is valid enough for you guys. I don't blame you. These episodes keep getting better and better and better. The jokes are still at its funniest. The inventions are creative as ever, which builds anticipation for more mayhem within the characters of the show. We even have a return to the backstory that Doofenshmirtz will discuss about the Perry the Platypus once he makes his new inventions, which adds more depth to his character. The first segment of this episode is kinda different though. Not a lot of funny jokes are present in this one, which kinda sucks. And also there's not really a lot to say about this first segment as it has a very generic plot. It kinda reminds me of some of these disappointing lackluster episodes of season 4, which is probably what I'll describe this segment. It is fun and all, but it's not as entertaining as the past few episodes of this season. The Doofenshmirtz and Perry part was a tad little funny, I guess. It was kinda good, but the rest of the episode was plain in terms of its quality. Here, at least we have that one recurring gag from the original one on the show that brings a return to this episode, in which its words that it shows how the episode's core is present throughout a lot of the series, showing how the editors keep in touch with the audience by purposely including to show their dedication to the show, and how it provides nostalgia to other areas in the show where it was mentioned. Thanks to one of my school friends for helping me with this part of the script, because I didn't really have a lot to talk about this episode, so I'm glad that he was able to help to add more to it for me, so yeah, I really give thanks to him. Also, spoiler alert, they are going to be repeating this same gag in other episodes pretty much as a way to set up lighter-hearted tones throughout the episodes, depending on how chaotic the situations are in the episode, especially with the scenes between Perry and Doofenshmirtz. This is a very cool way to experiment with the series as it enhances the execution of the episodes in terms of its fascinating moments. Other than that, this segment is just decent. Nothing much to say really. The second segment of this episode improves the quality of the episode combined. The writing in this one is so incredible. We got this plotline that revolves around a random therapist who gathers up evidence regarding Candace and Dr. Doofenshmirtz and how they failed to reach their ambitions in the show, which could be proof that their experience could have a parallel connection. This is good for Candace as her mom is with her, and it gives her the chance to convince her mom that what she says about Phineas and Ferb's inventions are actually real to her this entire time, so that Candace can finally have her brother's bracelet. We even have a meta joke in this episode that comes out of nowhere, which ends up being very funny.
Yes, I know. These bizarre claims sound like the ridiculous plot of a children's cartoon.
In the next part of the episode, the therapist has interrogations to Doofenshmirtz referring to how his innators disappear because of Perry hitting the self-destruct button every time he almost gets the opportunity to stop. And with Candace on her side, that Phineas and Ferb's inventions always magically disappear because Dr. Doofenshmirtz indeed accidentally shoot a laser at them. The scene perfectly transitions into a musical sequence where Candace explains that the evidence for what Phineas and Ferb are doing disappears a second before her mom gets the chance to see it, so that she knows that Candace isn't lying to her, but she still doesn't believe her at the end of the day. And also Doofenshmirtz, come on now, you get the picture. I absolutely love this song for the lyrics alone. The whole meaning of the lyrics kind of reminds me of Tomorrow is This Morning Again, where Candace and Doofenshmirtz discover a time loop that repeats the whole last day of summer, giving them a higher chance of achieving their goals that they haven't achieved ever since season 1 of the show. But with the fact that they failed to reach their ambitions for the whole of the summer, which is the equivalent to the whole of the show's original one in our standards, is probably what led to them seeking a therapist, as this is probably what had an effect on their mental health. We obviously know that Candace is probably depressed because she doesn't get enough attention by the people she sees, like even her own mom, because she probably hates her and only gives the credit to Phineas and Ferb. Dr. Doofenshmirtz on the other hand is abused because we obviously know his backstory of him being abused as a child is what led to him being evil, but his own daughter, Vanessa Doofenshmirtz, is always picking on him and criticizing him for what he is doing. Like even in the first episode of this season when she made her first appearance in this revival, she suspects that he is up to no good again after he promised that he's going to quit being evil. But even at that, according to her, Dr. Doofenshmirtz is better at being a good guy than being a bad guy. In reality, he is only doing this because of how he was treated in his childhood, because deep down he is an actual nice guy. And she is right indeed. Which proves that Dr. Doofenshmirtz is going through depression. Maybe he had gone back to being evil because he's sick and tired of being lonely, and the only way for him to deal with his loneliness is by bonding with Perry, the platypus, and that can only be done when he's doing evil. This all contributes to the idea about why it was an absolutely perfect idea for this song to be titled No One Understands Me. Because if you think about it, no one understands why Candace and Dr. Doofenshmirtz are the way they are in the show. Not only that, but the therapist comes up with a theory of it probably being that Candace and Dr. Doofenshmirtz situations have a deep connection. And that deep connection of their situations probably combines into a chain reaction that causes something bad to happen to Candace, in which you obviously know because of what happens she fails to bust her brothers, which we will touch up more on this later in the episode or whatever. Not only that this song is a banger, but the amazing writing of this song adds even more depth to Candace and Dr. Doofenshmirtz as characters. with this song being connected to one of the last songs from when the show originally ended. 3 months refers to the ambitions they have for the summer. It brings the acts into full circle, juxtaposed connections to occasion how their repeated failures and misunderstood motives are actually what unites them in their emotional struggles, giving the finale a bittersweet yet deeply meaningful resonance, which is what I absolutely love about this song. It builds up on the theme of one of the final songs from the original one of the show because of its emotional impact that it has on these two characters, which can also have an emotional impact on the audience of the show that relate to these two characters, including me, who has been going through emo and depression phases for the past 2 to 3 years now, where my mental health will just have hiccups every now and then.
No one understands me!
No one understands me!
What's the point? No one understands me anyway.
She said it! She said it!
And because of this emotional impact, it enhances the viewer's experience of them watching the episode, therefore making this an even better episode as a result. You see that the main cast of characters in the show other than Candace are being interrogated with this therapist so that he can find proof that Candace and Doofenshmirtz's instabilities are connected. Baljeet even spells it out why Candace is trying to bust her brothers. Mr. Guy, I should shut his nerdy ass up already because my nerdy Masiwu intellectual being Calvinus has already debunked this for you.
From my observations, Candace's instability stems from her desperate need for attention, which she clearly is not getting from her mother. It is no wonder Candace is crying out for help.
The writing gets better and better from here, with the parish that do hijinks with more chaos erupts, making this episode an even more fun experience. And we even have an emphasis on how Doofenshmirtz's advances lead to Candace failing to bust her brothers in every episode as Perry hits the self-destruction button implied from what Doof says in this scene.
Anyway, you get the idea. Kick here, a punch here, bada boom, bada bing. Oh no, look out! He body slammed me into my self-destruct detonate. You know, I never really know where these beams go, but I like to think it's a mysterious force for evil doing something bad to someone, somewhere.
This clever writing makes way for perfect execution for this episode as us viewers see it as Doofenshmirtz demonstrated the average scenario that when incinators get broken by Perry the Platypus when he hits self-destruct, he accidentally shoots a laser at Phineas and Ferb's inventions to reach the secret that Candace tries to show among these inventions so she knows that Phineas and Ferb are doing something that could potentially be life-threatening to them. The inventions disappear, which only prove to her that Candace is lying to her, which results in Candace failing to get her brothers busted, having her depressed for the rest of her teenhood because she didn't get the attention she wanted from her brother, as Baljeet already stated in this episode. This gives us the audience and our chance to use our knowledge to explore the deeper implications of Candace's emotional struggle, turning what seems like a light-hearted running gag into a subtle commentary on neglect, validation on the complexities of adolescence. The episode cleverly masks this emotional undercurrent of humor and repetition, but for viewers those paying close attention, especially those who grew up with the show, it invites us to question how much of Candace's desperation is rooted in her longing for acknowledgement, and how Doofenshmirtz's chaotic inventions unwittingly maintain a cycle that reinforces her emotional isolation. Additionally, this all adds up to evidence that the evil scientist therapist is going to Magpie into the theory that he is making about everyday assumption, and that counts about some mysterious forces zapping Phineas and Ferb's inventions before she gets the chance to get above his busted, which has a deep connection to Perry's intentions, because with this evidence contradicted the fact that platypuses don't do much. He proves that Perry, despite him being a platypus, can do a lot. with his main intention being that he prevents Dr. Doofenshmirtz from taking over the tri-state area. He does this by using very mild cartoon physical violence against him by attacking him so that Perry can hit the self-destruct button resonators fast before Dr. Doofenshmirtz is ready to make another move against him, in which when he does this, Dr. Doofenshmirtz resonators explode whilst he shoots a laser at Phineas and Ferb's inventions, which has an effect on Candace because it leads to these inventions vanishing before she attempts to show her mom, which results in Candace failing to get her brothers busted. The way they manage to make a plot line in the show where they debunk everything that goes on with the two main antagonists of the show. Each of these antagonists' own storylines that are clearly connected is very groundbreaking, as it adds more emotional depth to these two as characters, making them feel even more alive to its audience as they relate to them struggling to reach their ambition, and also what pushed them into their ambition that gets in their way of their everyday life, which makes us feel sympathetic towards the characters and even empathetic towards them at the same time, depending on our life experiences, which emotionally impacts the audience of the show, making the experience of this episode even better. As a result of this, it makes this plot of the episode even more intriguing to us, which has us hooked up full of anticipation as we predict which events will be happening next in the episode, making this episode even more entertaining to watch. With the way Doof's therapist is making this conspiracy that confirms details about the outcome, Monogram wants Perry to prevent this theory from being spread to the public so that they don't get exposed in order for it to not have an impact on their reputation, as he already warned about this earlier in the episode, except it wasn't thought that specific, so Perry wasn't fully sure whether this therapist turned out to be an evil scientist. So Perry didn't really do anything at first to stop him from his devious actions. So basically, we all learned that Perry's intention, the rest of the episode, all link back to the point that I just said about the therapist theory, and then revealing that whenever Perry starts taking over the tri-state area, it stops Candace from having the ability to snitch on her brothers, because him acting on his intention leads to his self-destructor nature being oh fucking hell. Just to describe this scene is a whole fucking mess. A laser gets shot to space as the self-destructing nature is in process of being self-destructed, as Perry attacked Doof earlier, which led to him being trapped up and down, which makes him hit the self-destruct button on accident, and then the laser travels back to Earth, to which it lands on the theoretical board, to which all the proof disappears. God fucking damn it, I don't know how to describe this shit properly. This is the definition of a perfectly written episode. We then have this one funny reference to Candace's reaction when she fails to bust her bubbles. Come on now, you all know the drill. The therapist becomes insane when the blimp that Phineas and Ferb were inside when they were at space disappeared right as when it was seen in the view, so that it can prevent Candace from pointing out to her mother that Phineas and Ferb are doing something that could potentially be dangerous for them. This leads to a visual gag that spells out delusional, as the joke is that the therapist is being called delusional, implying that the therapist was spreading false rumors the whole entire time. This joke made me laugh out loud when I was watching this episode, mainly because of its delivery, but also because the therapist is going through something that Candace goes through almost every day, which is more than ironic enough due to her being called delusional many times in the show before. And even with Candace going through that crap, she still isn't depressed anymore in reality, because she realizes that just because she doesn't get attention from her mother just by trying to bust her brothers throughout the summer doesn't mean that it can destroy any of her privileges in life, which is so relatable to me. And you as well as the audience could also relate to what Candace goes through on a daily basis throughout the show, which is a part of how she is known as this icon that spreads through our day-to-day lives. It's not like this scene will add development to her character until they undo that trope to her as a character, because the plot of the show consists of her wanting to bust her brothers in every episode. This will definitely not go on for the rest of the show. So it's like she said all of this for nothing. Wow, What in the actual fuck did I just watch? I thought this segment had perfect writing. It turns out the writing here is completely horrible. I'm never watching this show ever again after what monstrosity I have just seen. Nah, I'm just kidding. Because words couldn't describe how amazing this segment was in terms of its writing and execution alone. This is all what makes for another grateful episode of the series. Despite the first segment of this episode barely having anything to offer for it to be considered good, the second segment takes many steps forward and manages to turn things around for the full episode because of the way it sought our expectations with its versatile depth writing, its banger of a song that adds so much to the episode's writing itself. The comedy still being present and being as funny as ever, especially with its meta jokes or joke in singular, semicolon, etc. One thing that I wanted from this episode was an interaction between Candace and Doofenshmirtz to highlight their connection even further to their character depth, but we didn't get that unfortunately. Oh well. This segment was still amazing anyway. The fact that you can make a segment of a Phineas and Ferb episode as a depiction of the actual plot of the show and you flesh all of it out in full detail in 11 minutes is earth-shattering to me in such a tremendous way. Oh, and props to Olivia Olsen for being responsible for the amazing writing of this episode. She even wrote more episodes of the revival, in which all of them consist of pretty good quality at least. Man, she is such a good writer. She is probably like carrying this revival with her writing, which is pretty splendid, you know. Because of the way the creators of the show give one of the voice actors a chance to write the episodes, it brings hope for more good episodes like this. And that is really promising for the future episodes of this revival.
Wow, animation is so easy.
Animation is easy. Oh, animation is easy.
Shut your bitch ass up, Isabella. You're just a stupid ass little kid. You don't know anything. Anyway, I barely have anything to say about the first segment of this episode. One of the ingredients for the stakes of the plot of this episode that go higher is the B plot of the episode, the Doofenshmirtz and Perry, in which Doof has manufactured the turnover and later races up into the atmosphere and accidentally lands on Phineas and Ferb's invention. That's such a creative way to add plot to the segment, I guess. But this ain't all that special to me. It is to a musical number and it leads to some funny moments, especially with getting in the way of Linda while some random burglar steals her umbrella because she implied that she could be angry at Phineas and Ferb since they invented that Zoe trope. But we all know that Candace is going to fail to bust them. If I Candace, why the fuck did you not even think about letting your mom know that they made this invention in this part of the episode? If I was you, I would do that, but you had to fumble it this badly. Wow, what an idiot. Typical Candace. And also the line delivery in this scene, I don't know why, but it had me quite amused.
Well, what goes around comes around.
As well as a recurring gag from the original one of the series makes another comeback in this episode, which is pretty cool. And also the way Doof rotates a fraction of the tri-state area by 90 degrees leads into the Ferris wheel randomly making contact with a rock that may look like it will result in an apocalypse. And then first makes one, I don't know if it's a meta joke or if it's breaking the fourth wall or neither of these things, where it describes literally what happens in the next part of the episode, which is pretty funny because it's very coincidental. It just happens out of nowhere. Overall, this episode was very decent, but not really up to the standard of the original one of the series, heck even this season so far. The next segment, without a shocker, is an improvement, with it starting off with this funny cut-off when Phineas says his iconic line during the time Ralph Buford makes a decoy of the Bread Bull hot tub. Yeah, because Phineas ain't gonna do that today at the end of the day. The Bread Bull hot tub will still remain as a running gag, which is the funniest part of the scene. Also, that transition with Perry the Platypus entering inside his lair was so epic, by the way, with him being inside the pinball and the high score thing that somehow was kinda amusing. Holy shit, all that was so cool. And also, this is the first episode of the season that the Quirky Worky song is featured, marking the first time this song is featured in the Phineas and Ferb franchise ever since the original one on the show. It's been like 10 years now, so wow, this is actually epic. This is worth it for the fans who have been looking towards this revival for the nostalgia. There's this visual thing in this episode that Linda is reading a book titled My High-Strung Teen Parent Child, in which you all know that is who Candace is, because she is always misunderstood as why she wants to get her brothers busted, and she is always very dramatic about her failing to bust her brothers. She wants to seek her mother's attention, but she doesn't get the attention she wants, heck, maybe even needs, which is sad for her. If this is intended to be a visual gag, then this shit is so clever. I don't know why, but on my first watch of this episode, this shit made me laugh because it's basically Linda roasting her own daughter as Candace is trying to look for her attention in this scene. It absolutely caught me off guard. The scenes with Doof and Perry are still chaotic and funny as ever. The dialogue throughout this episode is still as amusing, along with the Red Bull hot tub gag, which automatically makes this episode better because of the way it was placed. One weird thing about this episode is that it was implied what Doof is saying in this episode, that his plants have a desire for Vanessa's boots. Hey yo, and do you know how old she is?
She's 16!
Well, she's 17 anyway in the revival, but my point I'm trying to make is still facts. Yeah, I didn't know that Doofenshmirtz plants are a bunch of pedos. Maybe even insects, but they're plants anyway, so that won't make any sense. But still though, wait, that Snyder happiness fetish that they have chewing on Madness feet. Yup, that shit is fucking disgusting. I don't even want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it.
Ow! Okay, I take it back. You're an abomination.
You think so, don't you? Because you created a bunch of pedophilic plants. This is why Vanessa sometimes doesn't like you as a father. Because of your disgusting fantasy. Doof's plants pop out of nowhere in Phineas and Ferb's backyard, which is funny. And it gets even more funnier when they transition into a musical sequence. When they transition into a musical sequence with them singing gibberish whilst eating metal, and the books that many Baljeet wants to use, to the point where Baljeet becomes insane when he uses a bitten off book to kill one of the plants in a very unsettlingly hilarious way. The action in this part of the episode is very badass, which makes this episode even more better. The chaos all ends as Perry causes the self-destruct button in his plantonator or whatever that caused all of Doof's plants to go extinct, including the ones in Phineas and Ferb's backyard, and meanwhile it leads to Doofenshmirtz falling down into some random place, to which, to no one's surprise, transitions into a funny gag where there's crops being built where some random kids tease him. The episode ends with a nice High School Musical reference where the kids replicate the jumping pose that they did in the movie. Then Candace judges them by calling them weird for doing the pose. Honestly, the emphasis on the High School Musical reference is that this scene, the scene is trying to replicate the pose that they did in the movie, like I already said, with that reference, just to make a reference. As a result, makes the scene in hilarious because of the fact that Candace's voice actor plays a character in the movie. In that movie, pretty much had sense into the suggestion that this could be a meta joke that they placed at the tail end of this episode on purpose, which is why this scene made me laugh out loud. And also, with it being the scene to end this episode makes this crap even more funnier. We then have this end credit scene that adds to the hilarious flow of the end of the episode that reminds me of some of the end credit scenes that they show in some Gravity Falls episodes because of the vibe it gives me. I'll play the clip so you will know what I'm talking about. Yeah, this full episode was pretty good overall. Well, not as good as the previous three, but still good enough to be worth a watch. Ah yes, an episode in the show where Doof and Perry are in the same location and Phineas and Ferb in one part of the episode. I don't know if they set out the structure like this before in the show before, but this is looking like a cool new experiment if new. Yeah, I said if new for a reason. I hate that I have to repeat my puns that I made for the other episodes, but some of the dialogue is still funny and the writing is good as always.
Agent P, you cannot be chipped, or your host family could track you at all times.
So could your enemies.
Girl, are you familiar with the phrase no duh?
And also, is that a no shit reference? Or maybe I am just drunk. I don't have much to say, but Doof is still as funny and heck even relatable as ever in this episode.
One more bite. Oh, I hate myself.
What?
Yeah, that's basically me without shitting my analyzing skills and my YouTube videos in general. Especially in this vid. The way Buford flirted with Jeremy in this scene only for a joke was actually quite funny, especially in the context of the episode. All of a sudden, people on the internet are already making headcanons that Buford is bi. We will touch up on more of this soon because somehow they will add up to this detail later in the season. The gags in this scene shown within Phineas and Ferb, Isabella and Baljeet are quite funny also, which make this scene more entertaining considering how fun it was looking to be already. The line deliveries with Doof with his goat and his goldfish that he randomly mentions and how it transitions into into scenes with goat screaming sound effects was quite funny. Seriously guys, I don't know how to describe these scenes other than quite funny, okay? They're just mildly amusing and that is it. I'm not even gonna touch up on the scene where his trousers thing was grumbling and then I don't know how to describe it, and then after that I played that sound effect because I didn't get that joke. Other funny scenes if I having nothing to say about are funny, and I guess there's nothing to say about the B plot of this episode. It's funny, but not rather hilarious, but just funny and fun as always. Okay, that sentence was kinda shit, you know. We have a cool fight scene between Doof and Perry, I guess, and then we have this one reference to the most popular Phineas and Ferb song in this country that is very overrated by the way. I'm sorry guys, Gitchy Gitchy Goo is not an amazing song. I don't know why my country had to overhype this song so much. Like there's other better songs out there from specifically the first season of the show, like My Nemesis, Bollywood, Queen of Mars, I Love You Mom, Busted, Perry the Platypus theme, Ain't Got Rhythm, the list goes on. But seriously though, with that fish singing that song as a gag, which was kind of funny, look, I don't know what other word I can describe these scenes other than funny all the time, okay? Jeez, you guys are getting tired of me either repeating myself or repeating the same words over and over again throughout this bit. I mean, I know there were scenes in season 1 of the show when they were making references to this song in the show, which I'm sure some of them were placed in as gags, so yeah, it makes sense to do this to appeal to the long-time fans of the show who have nostalgia for it. The X-ray gag on Dr. Doofenshmirtz is perfectly placed. The links pretty much back to earlier in the episode where he said all these things when he was biting a hot dog. Such an amusing and nice way to call back to dialogue from earlier in the episode. The gag then continues as it occurs throughout one gag in the next part of the episode where some random guy is eating hot dog. Meanwhile, the Perry and Doofenshmirtz hijinks continue, in which that's the place where Doofenshmirtz got the idea of making this gag when he was eating hot dog, which makes this joke even and funnier. I don't know, but even the mildly amusing detail from these episodes make them more entertaining to watch. There's some visible humor with Doof as he gets stuck in a pipe when he fails to catch Perry the platypus, then he falls out and water spills all over the place, which is very hilarious in such a chaotic way. Typical Phineas and Ferb with its loony mayhem. It's a part of the show that adds even more charm to its ascendants. The episode ends with, "Bro, this is the end of the first segment of episode 5, not the whole episode." Then from the context of this final part of the segment, it ends with a cutaway gag with Ferb doing that goat screaming sound effect. Such a hilarious way to end the segment, with this scene giving me OG Family Guy vibes with the way this gag was played out. Good segment overall. There's not really a lot to say about the second segment of this episode, but it still continues with the funny dialogue scenes that we also get to see in this segment, just like in the previous segment, which is pretty cool. I love how they are staying consistent with the stuff they bring in with the episodes that make them a very good watch. And this one gag with Monogram when he tries to turn off the lights in Perry's there, where Perry forgets to switch off the lights. But then it turns into some light dancing machine. How the fuck am I 16 years old and I don't even know what this object is called? Or maybe I just forgot. I'm so dumb. Of course, Carl is dancing to it, then Monogram turns it off with his remote, which is very funny. He just stopped him from dancing, doing whatever, like I don't know, whatever Carl enjoyed doing. He stopped him from having his fun. Because he's pretty much goofing around and shit. That is like he doesn't want any BS from him, or else like he'll be like wasting Monogram's time, and all that shit. I don't fucking know. The hijinks we have with Doofen's merch is still as funny as ever, with him making a fish and eat, and I don't even know if his fat ass wants to eat the fishes that if he wants to eat the fish that he has in his oval-shaped tube, but he's using it to create chaos in this episode, will lead to some mildly amusing scenes, making the episode even more entertaining, as well as with Carl being in the supporting protagonist in this part of the episode, because I think Monogram told him he must do a job for the day, which probably led to this very cool scenario that sets the stakes up for this episode, in which he is going to be doing that for the rest of the episode so that he can help Perry from stopping Doof from taking over the tri-state area, which obviously delivers some even more funnier moments in the long run. There's nothing much to say about this episode, especially in the A-plot. However, there is this one dialogue scene that is very funny because of how it realistically depicts the society within restaurants, and how they don't even give a shit about the workers' mental health at all as they are making food, which is actually true.
Remember, customer retention is way more important than employee mental health.
This is pretty dark for Phineas and Ferb standards. This is a joke I would expect to land in an adult cartoon, which shows how they are breaking boundaries, which is actually pretty cool the way they are getting away with all these elements. Once Perry finally gets Doof's fissionator shattered, it gets transitioned into a recurring gag that's the gag from the original one of the show. How many times are they bringing back this gag? Oh my god, these scenes are so hilarious. I love that they are doing this as a way to get us fans even more, them relying on fan service in terms of bringing back old jokes for nostalgia's sake, because with the way it lightens up the mood after all these chaotic funny moments we have with Dr. Doofenshmirtz that leads to the gag being in place. Makes the episode even more funnier, making the episode a better experience for us viewers, resulting in an enhancement of the quality of the episode. This segment was actually great. We are finally back to the greater aspects in the show again. One thing I love about was its plot and writing, with the way they set up challenges for Carl as he was tackling throughout many jobs at the same time for Monogram, which pretty much adds depth to Carl as a character, as it leads to his character development, which has an emotional impact towards his character, and is good for us viewers as it makes the episode even more better for us. as it even emotionally impacts us as well depending on our case scenarios. It gives us hope for more intriguing plotlines like this in the show. About the points I came across this whole full episode, it's overall a pretty good episode. Fucking hell, I hate having to repeat myself. There's nothing else to say about these types of episodes, so I might as well have to go with that, I guess.
Fear not, Phineas and Ferb will be right back on Disney Channel. Now, back to more adventures with Phineas and Ferb on Disney Channel.
Oh, Stacy playing video games with Perry. How wholesomely cute. This foreshadows that they will probably have an episode very soon related to the bond that they have with one another, so that is very promising, I guess. I actually don't know what to say about this episode. There's nothing to say about the Candace and Phineas and Ferb plot in this episode. However, what's nice about this episode is that Vanessa and Monty are finally back together. The last time we saw them together was in the original one of the series. So it's pretty cool we are seeing them back together in the revival. This is very hopeful as it will lead to more intriguing events in the show regarding their romantic relationship that will add more depth to these characters. With them developing these character dynamics from the original one of the show, it makes us get more invested on what else is going to be left in the timeline of this series. Out of nowhere we get this scene where Doofenshmirtz gets swamped to the point where Monty accidentally eats him, which is very funny. Typical goofy Doofenshmirtz, always creating funny hijinks for these episodes of the show, which is what makes these episodes even more entertaining. We have this beautifully good musical sequence in the episode that also involves Monty and Vanessa hanging out with each other, which adds to the peaceful, serene flow of this episode. Especially if the view of the tri-state Aurora. It's so soothing to me and I love it. Again, there's nothing else to say about the episode, but that ending with Doofenshmirtz getting handcuffed was hilarious. The way Perry the Platypus was able to escape out of the scenery, and also the vibe of the ending it gave to me was so relaxing. Good episode overall. With the episode title being a clever title reference to Lord of the Flies, a book that we read back in the 8th grade, aka year 9 if you're British like me. It brings us anticipation for the scenarios that are going on in the main plotline of the episode with Isabella and the Fireside Ghosts. It's nice to see a comeback to the Love Muffin evil gang in the show. In the B plot really, there's nothing much to say about it. Throughout the main plotline of the episode, the characters are arguing about each other and what flavor of cupcake they want from Isabella, and then they start going on rampages on whatever they want from Isabella because they later reveal to Isabella that they wanted to have donuts in the first place, and it's like Isabella is not making the dessert food that they truly wanted, so they start having conflict with each other against each other, which leads to chaos, which brings in some funny moments. You do get some fun moments in the B plot of the show as usual, so that's cool. It then transitions into a song where the Fireside Girls are continuing to create conflict around the place by trashing the cupcakes that they don't want, so they decide to take action against it by burning the place and creating mess all over the place, creating a World War Harvest environment with them crashing out about their rage regarding the cupcakes that they feel like they are being forced to eat, which leads to some epic fight scenes that are so amazingly animated, which impacts on how intense this song is, making it reflect the high energy visuals of the scene and its chaotic theme. And also this song sounds so fucking badass with its heavy metal music. They even made a reference to the son of a bitch phrase in this episode, which is pretty cool and badass of Isabella, by the way. I would imagine the age rating of this show changing from TVG to TV14 if she actually saw. This is a huge W. It adds to the intense scenery of this episode, which is pretty fitting for the vibe this part of the episode is going for. That's all I have to say about this episode. Great episode overall. What I love about this segment of segment of the episode is how they managed to take the plot of the Lord of the Flies in terms of its narrative with pre-pubescent with these boys that are stranded on an uninhabited island and their disastrous attempts to govern themselves that led to a descent into savagery, in which its themes include morality, leadership, and the tension between civility and chaos. Definitely didn't steal that from Reddit, by the way. That the way they managed to take that plot and use it to create an episode of the show just as a parody is so breathtaking in such a clever way. Here that Isabella and the Fireside Girls are stranded in a random building, and they try to take advantage of Isabella so that they can have authority of what they want from her, which leads into disaster that involves chaos and war. It's such a brilliantly unhinged take that turns satire into spectacle, which is very innovative for the show. The fact that they are taking this approach again is very promising for the future events of the show, as it makes way for more great ideas that will be developed further in the future episodes of the show, which allow for the revival to be a very great experience for the long-time fans of the show who have been anticipating for this moment to come after 10 years of the original one of the show's ending, as it will make this revival even more worth it for them, and it would have them hooked on the episode from start to finish, as it triggers even more hype from these fans.
I'm gonna hate myself for suggesting this, but didn't Buford make a full-size mold of you once?
I'm sure Buford made a joke about there being Candace suits like back in season 3 episode 30 of the show. Show where basically he had molds of Candace. Which that episode debuted in 2012. 13 years later, we now have an episode that revolves around that concept. Ah yes, who would have saw that coming? They even made a reference to this in the episode, which is pretty cool. Which is a pretty cool way of introducing the concept of this episode. And we get some funny dialogue from Stacy. Like even Buford does this, he still has a mold of Candace, especially the liquid one as we saw back in that season 3 episode. I love the way they are connecting some of these adventures with old adventures in the show. It hooks the long-time fans even more into the episode due to the fan service, because it gives them nostalgic flashbacks from the original one of the show, which enhances the experience of them as they watch the episode. It makes way for some amusing scenes that make the episode also kinds of entertaining. Isabella even mocks her when she wears the Candace suit, which is pretty funny. And you know how I said that Buford is bisexual earlier in this video? Yep, they explored that trope of his character even further in this episode with him dressing up in the Candace suit so that he can have a date with. This pretty much reveals that Buford probably has romantic feelings for Jeremy. But this is weird because Jeremy is 16 here and Buford is 11 here. That's a 5-year age gap, which seems kinda sus because Jeremy is too old for Buford. Again, they're playing this gag all for laughs, like even the whole musical number with Buford dressing up as Candace is a gag in itself, which it turns out to be kinda funny overall. We then get this scene where Candace pulls out each and every Candace suit to Phineas and Ferb's backyard. And he basically thinks that her mom is inside her suit, but every time it is revealed that her mom isn't inside each of the suits. Instead, it's one of the characters that are in the episode, which freaks Candace out, which is pretty funny. And also, this end scene with the end text in question marks seems pretty intriguing. This could imply that the plot of this episode could somehow continue in a future episode, but if the concept of this episode being based up a concept that they came up with back in season 3 of the show, it pretty much makes sense. Good segment overall. In fact, scratch that, because they touched upon that joke they made in season 3 episode 30 of the show, aka Doofenshmirtz, the episode where Dr. Doofenshmirtz said the N-word, by the way.
Look a little more this way.
This automatically makes this segment not just good, but pretty good, despite there being nothing to say about the Doof and Perry plot of this one. With this episode starting off with the dynamic between Stacy and Perry, It seems like there is so much anticipation for us viewers being brought to the table. We finally have a return to one of the most underrated dynamics in the show that us long-time fans of the show were rooting for, which is pretty promising for the plot of this episode. In fact, it is even mentioned that Stacy has found out that Perry is a secret agent, which is a tremendous payoff to Season 4 Episode 6, Happy Birthday Isabella, where this idea was first explored in the show. They are finally becoming back to this idea in the show, which brings us so much hype for us longtime fans of the show. It makes us feel intrigued for what events are going to happen in this episode. Speaking of what happens in this episode, it seems that Doofenshmirtz is in the same location as Stacy and Perry in this episode, so it could imply that Stacy is going to be important for the plot of this episode. Also, I forgot to mention that one part of the episode, the way Dr. Diminutive made a comeback was that Dr. Doofenshmirtz was so savage. It was so funny the way Doof got violated by this midget. He probably got embarrassed. This episode so far has so many high stakes, with Doofenshmirtz locking up Perry, the platypus in the box, trapping him inside. When Stacy finds out about this, she excuses Candace about this so that she can prevent Perry from being kidnapped by the Love Muffin gang. So she puts herself into the mission as she wants to protect Perry. Now this is where things start to become even more interesting. Like seriously guys, Stacy protects Perry from his death in this episode once she releases him from her trap, and also she contributes to the fight scene in this episode. Holy shit man, this shit is so amazing. I don't know how to describe this, but oh my god, she was so badass in this part of the episode with the way she managed to gaslight the members of the Love Muffin gang into thinking that she was there just to either help them or she was there to visit, but in reality she was there to protect Perry from her trap, and she did this by gaslighting. Stacy literally saved Perry's life, and I refuse to believe that. Honestly, this shit is the best thing we have gotten in the revival so far. Us longtime fans have been asking for years and years for Stacy to be involved in Perry's missions as their character dynamics evolve, and now it has finally happened in the show. This is a huge win for the show, an absolute game changer for the revival. Stacy finally stepping into the spotlight as a key player. In Perry's word, it's everything fans dreamed of. And with this adding to a dynamic between her and Perry, it adds more depth to these two as characters and their dynamic as a whole, which makes us fans feel more invested throughout these types of dynamics in the show. It gives us hope for the crew of the show to stretch this dynamic even further in the future episodes of the show, so that we can see more of Stacy's impressive skills of her disguising as being a supportive agent for Perry the Platypus. Such a wholesome bond that they both have. And also with that, we also get another parody of the Perry the Platypus theme with Stacy Hirano, which is a pretty cool send-off to the episode. This is another banger to come from the show. It slaps so hard, and with the segment already being amazing, it stretches the quality of the episode even further, making it an overall 9.5 out of 10 segment of the episode. Man, Stacy and Perry playing video games in the previous episode was already enough for this dynamic to continue in the show. But along with another episode revolving that dynamic that literally continues, who's their dynamic, making the show in general, that's pretty amazing to me, you know. It's all us longtime fans could have asked for ever since this show ended 10 years ago in 2015. This was such an incredible successor to Happy Birthday Isabella, where it was the previous time they tossed up this aspect within Perry and Stacy in the series. Overall, this is one of the best episodes of the revival so far, and the future of the revival seems promising as a result of these episodes being consistent with their quality. One thing we get to see in this episode is a hologram of Phineas front-facing for more than a millisecond, and even more than a second, which is pretty uncanny to me and surreal, but hilarious that it was there. And speaking of uncanny, Doof as a moth is a pretty funny concept for this episode in terms of what Doof is up to, in which the environment is pretty gross, which still makes it's pretty gross, and it makes way for some amusing scenes. And also they literally make a parody of the two nickels joke that they made it way back in Phineas and Ferb across the second dimension, where Linda counts how many times Candace tried to pester her to bust Phineas and Ferb, and with a nickel being 5 cents, obviously she would have $5.20, which is a very funny and clever joke. I mean, this 2 nickels joke from Doofenshmirtz has been a meme on the internet for a long while now, so it makes sense why they made the reference to it. The Heart song is pretty fun and catchy, I guess. With the way Perry's heart got damaged, the placing of this song in the episode makes all the more sense, which makes the episode even more entertaining to watch. There's nothing much to say about this segment of the episode instead of the Doof and Perry scenes being as chaotic as usual, leading to some more funniness and us getting some other funny moments in this episode. The gag with Doof eating a sock was pretty hilarious. It was a very good way to end this good segment. One thing we know about this next segment is that there are some scenes that show Candace listening to Chop Away From My Heart, a song from Milo Murphy's Law, by the way. It's cool that they made a reference to the show. One thing I would ask though is, where the fuck is Milo Murphy's Law Season 3? Hopefully they will continue from where they left off in this cliffhanger in the future episode of this revival. If Phineas and Ferb and even more characters on the show have made an appearance in Milo Murphy's Law, perhaps it's time for Milo Murphy's Law and its cast of characters to make an appearance in the Phineas and Ferb revival. One thing Gravity Force fans, including me, notice about this musical number from this part of the episode is that the gnome is pretty much the same gnome designed from the gnome from Gravity Force. First, Alex Hirsch voice acted the character in one episode of this show, and now this. It's like Alex Hirsch gave Dan Povenmire a gift, and because of that, Dan Povenmire gives him a gift back in return. Man, this shit is so cool. Otto Doofenshmirtz eventually leads to some funny moments in the episode, especially with Ferb almost looking like a mess from Earthbound with that face, what the fuck. And also with Baljeet going back to character in this episode when he saved Phineas and Ferb and friends from that monster. He revealed that he was acting the whole time, which meant that he was out of character. On second thought, it pretty much makes sense that this episode is titled Out of Character because Baljeet is usually a smart but insecure guy. For his accomplishment, he managed to overcome his anxieties of him being being eaten by the monster by gaining inner confidence, which allows him to embrace his maturity and his fears. It's usually Baljeet isn't capable of this, so the fact that he managed to overcome something like this just adds a character development point for him, which adds more depth to him as a character. This aspect of the episode is so clever, the idea that Baljeet had to go out of character for his character growth to be present in the episode, which made this episode a more entertaining watch. And also with Out of Character being the title of the episode, it adds even more personality and charm to the episode's narrative itself, which is one thing I love so much about this episode. And also the ending scene of the episode was pretty funny in itself. Pretty good full episode overall. This episode has finally been created into the public. After almost a decade of waiting ever since they made a fake announcement that they didn't plan to make this episode, the episode is finally here. I know that they didn't plan to make this episode, but so many fans have been asking for it, which is why they made it clear in this episode. Like even in the episode or even in the episode, or they made it clear that they didn't want to make this episode in the first place. I know that they didn't plan to make this episode, but so many fans have been asking for it, which is why they made this episode. They just felt like they were obliged by their fans to make it. One thing people say about this episode that make it not good is mainly because of the meta jokes they keep making about the films in this episode that replicate one of the films that they were trying to match up from that Meet Me in St. Louis fake announcement Twitter. That is now real, by the way, in which they probably did this because they wanted to make it clear that they didn't plan to make this episode, and also because they thought it would be attention grabbing to the fans who wanted this episode. It was actually so annoying that the joke occurred many times throughout the episode, which is what dropped the episode down in terms of quality for many of the fans who watched this episode, and I understand why. It even annoyed me at one point, because it's literally one of the whole points of the episode, which is stupid. But as I was watching the episode and as I got some entertainment from this episode, I started to get used to it. But nonetheless, these points, I actually kinda liked the episode. It was still disappointing though, as the plot didn't have much to offer, and also the pacing was too fast, so it was hard for me to understand what was going on in the plot of the episode regarding Meep and his enemy Mitch. Candace is also involved in the plot of the episode, and she is basically there to help Meep bust his nemesis Mitch, so that he can prevent him from stealing a long-glass treasure dice lurking somewhere on Earth. There is this one joke from the episode regarding them making up a fifth season, a season which combines autumn, winter, spring and summer all to make a season called Stabby Birth Pain. This idea of this concept is that it's probably a meta joke to represent how Phineas and Ferb originally had 4 seasons, which is why it was planned to have anyway. But I got a 5th one because fans wanted more. This concept of the episode is important for the main plot, as it's a way to distract Mitch so that his evil scheme can be stopped. This comes in with a musical number that actually slaps so hard, by the way. How many fucking bangers are we getting from this revival, and we're not even halfway yet through the 5th episode? That's how impressive this is. The crew of this show never fails to amaze its audience, especially in the writing of the song and with Isabella singing it. It gives me these nostalgic vibes right from season 1 of the show with the Swinter song, which that alone gives me a more sensational experience of this song. This episode had its funny moments, I guess, and it was pretty entertaining, and the fact that Candace was involved in the mission of protecting Meep was actually cool, and also the way that she was there to help Mitch get busted. Oh boy, that shit was great. Absolute splendid execution and writing. It reminded me of Agent T-14, where Stacy was there to save Perry from his death trap, in which that alone makes this episode even more enjoyable for me. Props to this episode, by the way, for that alone. But the one thing that dragged this episode down is that not much was happening in the plot of this episode. There needed to be more action and even a better setup and an intense climax for us to be intrigued throughout the episode. And also they went way too far with the meta jokes that had dragged on until the end of the episode, where Doofenshmirtz acknowledged that they didn't use the final frame that was featured in the Twitter of the episode. They didn't even have to touch on that. It makes the joke even more jarring. Sure, the joke was a bit funny at first, but when it goes on throughout the whole episode, is what bugs me. All what I said doesn't change the fact that this is the weakest episode of the series, but it is still pretty decent. It's like making the episode a little bit good, a tiny bit good, by the way. Don't get me wrong, but for an episode that was meant to continue the Chronicles of Meep series, it's pretty disappointing. And the fact that they did not even plan to make this episode, they did not even want to make this episode, is not a good excuse enough for them to make all these meta jokes. If it wasn't for all these meta jokes recurring throughout the whole episode, I would actually give this episode a 7 out of 10. And if they did something more with the plot of the episode, I will give it an 8 out of 10. Hopefully they will get back to their brilliant cooking methods in the next episode, which is the final episode I'm covering in this video since it's the last of the batch of these episodes they released on Disney+. This episode, the vibe it gave me reminded me of some of the classic Phineas and Ferb episodes. How nostalgic. And also Vanessa, Candace and Stacy are back together. This dynamic is very captivating for the theme of the episode. It has been ever since Night of the Living Pharmacist that we saw them together, so it's pretty cool to see them and back together. Like the dynamic is, it's like the dynamic is back in the revival of this show. Yeah, it really means a lot for these episodes. It really means a lot for us as an audience, because with these dynamics, it can have us feel more intrigued with the scenarios and stuff that's going to be going on in the episode. Like whether it makes this episode a little more entertaining, the characters and stuff, the wholesome bonds that they have with each other. It really holds us with anticipating for us, which makes us invested throughout these types of episodes, which is what makes the experience of these episodes better for us viewers, especially since it leads to a beautiful music number of the show that is a banger, by the way, with them hanging out with each other and singing together, which is pretty wholesome, along with Phineas and Ferb and friends planning what they would be doing on slumber party to have fun just as usual kids do. It's pretty charming. And also the B-plot of the episode where Doof is watching the 2-part finale acquaintances with, where he is planning to reveal the spoilers of the ending of it as his evil scheme, which is a pretty good concept. And also the acquaintances gags in this episode manage to be quite amusing. It makes the episode even more fun to watch. Lord, there's nothing much to say about this segment of this episode, but that ending where they made a change to the jingle of the Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated theme, with Doofenshmirtz not wanting that to happen, was a pretty funny meta joke that made me cackle out loud. It was the best way to end a good episode like this, honestly. I love the plot idea of this segment where Phineas and Ferb think of something to get Baljeet into Western culture. It's pretty fascinating. And also the B-plot of the episode where it pretty much is set in a Western-like setting as well. It's pretty fitting for the episode's theme, which makes this episode more attention-grabbing to its audience. We have another musical sequence that this time it is Western-themed, which is pretty fitting for the episode. Which is pretty fitting for the narrative of this episode. And basically the person who is singing the song sounds like Applejack from My Little Pony. Tell me if I'm drunk for thinking this.
In a forced perspective Western town, you might.
Honestly, Boba Doof was so funny. Like he's basically Doofenshmirtz doing a funny Western accent that adds personality to Boba Doof and his evil scheme. Him cooking up the platypus by trapping him into a cage. That shit is so unhinged, it makes me want to laugh out loud. I didn't know that trapping platypuses and planning to kill them so that you can cook them up and then eat them, and it was a Western thing. The more you know.
It's not funny! It's never been funny! It's never gonna be funny!
That final joke with Candace about forcing perspectives was pretty funny, I guess. I have nothing much to say about this episode. It was good. Overall, it was just good. But it was still worth my time to watch it, you know. And that's my whole review on the first batch of Phineas and Ferb episodes that released on Disney+. I'm pretty shocked how the quality of these episodes matched the quality of the original one of the show's episodes, with the way it exceeded my expectations by such a long mile, because as a result, it makes this revival not just good, not just very good, but actually great so far. Sure, this season is not as good as the first 4 seasons of the show so far, but it is still actually great, just like I said. Which is pretty much how you know that Phineas and Ferb is probably one of the best Disney Channel shows of all time. This was a great fresh start to the season. It was worth all the hype that we have been anticipating for 10 years to wait for this show to come back, and it actually paid off, which I'm glad out of that outcome, because this means we're going to get more good episodes throughout the second half of this season. I can't wait for what is yet to come for this revival, for a very amazing series that recaptured Disney television animation scene, which led to a renaissance for Disney Channel's cartoons as a whole, as it led to us getting many good shows from the network during the 2010s and heck even this decade. I really hope they bring back Milo Murphy in an episode of the show one day. Which, how fucking long have we been waiting for them to renew season 3 of the show? We need to protest to Disney about what bullshit they have been doing with the show, and use this to convince the creators to make a third season of the show. I know that Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Mars want to continue the series, so Disney will need to take action with this and allow them to continue the show. Because the show was left on a cliffhanger, there needs to be a way for them to resolve that cliffhanger and continue from where they left off from it. Or perhaps they can do that in the Phineas and Ferb revival, since one of the posters of the revival implied that Milo may appear in an episode of the show, so it makes sense for them to continue the Milo Murphy's lost story in the Phineas and Ferb revival. Outside of Phineas and Ferb, I've got one other Disney Channel cartoon to cover in a video before my Phineas and Ferb summer ends. Get it? Because throughout this whole summer I've been on my Phineas and Ferb phase.